Welcome back to the Bracketology 2024 predictions, and let's get right into it with a fresh bracket. And as we did in the last video, I'm going to just be going through Joe Lunardi's bracket, predicting which teams I would win based on my power rankings. There's enough websites that are making their own organic Bracketology predictions. So this one is actually a fresh bracket, and let's get right into it with the predictions. So in the playing games will start there. Ncaa against Ole Miss, some of the last teams in the field. Ole Miss has been plummeting since that start with 3 losses. Now they've drawn several games in their past 5, and they are on the downward spiral. Ncaa's been around this spot the majority of the season, ever since those 2 premium home wins against UConn and Marquette. Things have slowed down for them. Now they find themselves at the cut line. I think Ncaa is the better team here, and I'll pick them to win there. Then Butler Gonzaga, another Big East team that is on the downward trend. They did not play well against better opponents such as Marquette and Creighton at home, and those are when you need to get these teams, because Butler does not have much of a chance on the road, and Gonzaga picked up that huge win at Kentucky. They continue to roll in WCC play. Give me Gonzaga here. I think they're playing better than they have during most of the season right now, but 2 trips to St. Mary's and USF at the end of the season loom large for them. Now let's get into the actual bulk of the bracket. If I see some upsets, then I will call them out as well. Didn't have many upsets last week. I'll try and mix it up a bit this week. We've got Florida Atlantic against TCU. TCU's been up and down. They've been from the 7 to 10 lines about this whole season. But the difference between these 2 teams, Florida Atlantic, wow, they were at the 4, the 5 seed just a couple weeks ago in the top 25. And they've just been on the downfall. Not as bad as fellow American competitor Memphis, but Florida Atlantic topped it off with that loss at USF. They made it closer at the end, but they were down as much as 25 in that game. But the difference between Florida Atlantic and TCU is Florida Atlantic has been very good on the neutral floor against better opponents. I think it's actually better for Florida Atlantic that they are in a little bit of a worse seed, so that they get to play a better team, as crazy as it sounds, because they're going to be in a close game either way. 8-9 matchup. I'm actually going to take Florida Atlantic here. I think that they just aren't consistent enough for the American. If they were in a conference like TCU, Big 12, I think they'd still have the same win percentage. Just maybe that speaks to the discipline, the coaching, but they do also have, of course, the experience in the tournament as well, coming from this 8-9 game. So they would play UConn there. Then Wisconsin against Indiana State, and Indiana State, wow, they were at the 5-6 seed just a couple days ago, lost 2 straight after making it into the AP poll. Wisconsin's on a similar downward spiral. The dangerous part here about Indiana State with all these mid-majors, they don't have many games against Power 5 competition. Indiana State hasn't won one. They played Alabama and lost by 20. But Indiana State, I'm actually going to take them to win this game just because of how bad Wisconsin's been. And this 12 seed, I mean, you lose 2 games and you go down 5 or 6 seed lines. So if we just alter our opinion of Indiana State, assume that they'll get out of this rut, I think they're a much better team than their seed line will ever indicate. Of course, most of that inflated ranking was gained by beating and blowing out inferior opponents, but I think that they can step up to the plate here, beat a struggling Wisconsin team there. Both very good offensive teams there. That would be a very interesting matchup. Then Auburn against App State. Again, this can't happen in real life because it already happened. App State won, so I'm just going to give App State the win here. But let's talk about Auburn. Big week last week. 40-point blowout of South Carolina. Then the offense evaporated against Kentucky, and they lost that one at home. Very shocking there. But that win against South Carolina kind of keeps them in the same place from last week. They drop a seed line from the 3 to the 4, but some injury concerns there. Can they take care of business the rest of the season? They have a very hard schedule in the SEC coming up. We'll see what happens there. I like this Auburn team in the macro, but again, they're playing App State here, and they already lost. Let's see some new blood in these brackets. Then we've got Colorado State against Seton Hall, and I'm going to take Colorado State there. Very good Mountain West team. Was projected higher at one point, but Mountain West play has taken a toll on them, especially those home road splits. And so I like them to beat Seton Hall, but we'll see how far they can go from there. Florida against Nevada. This is a good game. Nevada barely escapes against UNLV. For that reason, I think they're a little inflated right now. Give me Florida, a team that's absolutely surging right now. And then they would play North Carolina. So let's get to the other side of the bracket before we get into these second round games. Purdue would face, I think, Texas here. Virginia has a very interesting tendency over these past few games to either win by sub 5 points or lose by a lot. And that trend came to fruition again when they played Virginia Tech. Got blown out by the widest margin of victory in 4 years. And they are just not able to score the ball. They're not playing defense as good as they have been. And so I like Texas to win this one easy. Just scored that great win over Kansas State. And so they still have a tough Big 12 schedule, as everyone does. We'll see what they do during the rest of it. Kentucky, again, scored that big win over Auburn. I'll give them the win against the South Florida team that is similarly surging. Quick note on South Florida. After losing 4 games in the first month, so November and then the beginning of December, they've only lost one. They're 17-1 since. Only one loss in American play at UAB, tough place to play there. And then they just cap it off with a win against FAU. Right now they got the automatic qualifier because they have the best conference record. We'll see if they can keep that up, but big turnaround for the Bulls after a lackluster start that included losses to Hofstra, Maine, among others. So that was just horrible for their ranking. They're about 10 to 12 spots outside of the field right now, so they just need to win out, essentially, maybe win the American tournament there. San Diego State against Akron. I like San Diego State here. Also been on a surge as of late. St. Mary's, Grand Canyon. I like St. Mary's. This is a good game. Grand Canyon, again, beat SDSU at home, but St. Mary's has just been a different team as of late. I like them to win, to cruise in this one easily. Utah State against Nebraska. I was 50-50 on this game. I'm going to give Utah State the win here. Nebraska coming off a big win over Penn State. Utah State coming off a big loss at Colorado State, but they'll return home today if you're watching this on this Tuesday and play SDSU, and I think they'll win that, so that's kind of my reasoning for taking them here. They will then play Tennessee. So let's go back to the first bracket to make my second round prediction. So UConn against FAU, I think UConn wins this easily. Haven't talked about UConn yet, so let's do it now. Massive 25-point win against Marquette. Right now they're playing like the best team in the nation, and it doesn't really look like they can lose. Now they go on the road to Creighton. I think that they could lose that one. In fact, I have it like a 50-50 chance that they will. We'll see what happens there, but UConn for now, they're going to be advancing in this bracket. And then Indiana State against App State. I'm going to take Indiana State here just for the reasons above. App State, couple non-conference wins against Auburn. Also blew out UNC Wilmington by 30 on the neutral site. Lost at Oregon State in overtime, but since they are 3-0 in overtime games. So for that reason, App State, if this is close, could win, but I like Indiana State to get that offense roaring again and beat App State in that one, that theoretical matchup. Then we have Colorado State against Iowa State. I think this one's not too much of a sweat here. Colorado State, very good team. We'll see if they can return to kind of the form that they were in the out-of-conference, but I like Iowa State to win that one despite their close loss at Houston. I still believe in this Iowa State team. Great defense for TJ Alonso-Vargo's squad there. Then we have Florida against UNC, and as I said before, I think Virginia will have some success against this North Carolina team. For that reason, I'm going to take Florida here. Another upset, 7-2. And so Florida would then play Iowa State. I like Iowa State to sweep that one. Florida, great offensive team there, but I think Iowa State would just be able to turn them over. Sometimes they get loose with the ball at times. And so Iowa State to the Elite Eight, where I think they would play UConn, who would be playing Indiana State. I think that would just be then their little Cinderella run there. UConn can just torch these horrible teams. And so I think they do the same there. Now to the other side, we've got Purdue, Texas, and this could be an interesting one. I like Purdue there. Texas has just been a little too up and down for me. I say that as Purdue just lost to Ohio State. I think that was a little bit of a fluke, just a horrible spot for Purdue, but there were some concerning signs for Edey there not being able to score when he is up against size. I don't think Texas has the size to do it there. I like Purdue to move on to the Sweet 16. Then San Diego State against Kentucky. I'm actually going to give the Aztecs the win here. Kentucky, great win against Auburn, but that does not define the whole season. Will these youngsters be good enough to concentrate? I think they have a really tough first round game against South Florida just because of the difficulty of this schedule. I'm going to give San Diego State the nod here, but Kentucky did make a center change. We'll see how that goes for them, and that seemed to work really well in the Auburn game. They continue to show strides, and Coach Cal is just a great coach, so we'll see if they can continue to move up, play with more consistency, maybe play a little defense from time to time, because San Diego State plays a lot of defense, so this would be a great matchup. Which one would give? I think San Diego State's defense would hold Kentucky's offense just enough to let them through and play Purdue. I think Purdue would win that one pretty easily. San Diego State, I don't think they have it in them again, and Purdue is much more solid, and San Diego State, I don't think they really have the size to match up with Edey there. Then St. Mary's against Baylor. I'm going to take Baylor here, even though I think they might lose at BYU. They have another home game against Houston, so I expect them to at least split those two. So then a lot of people will be looking at them in a different light for sure if they do that. St. Mary's, again, very consistent down the stretch here, blowing out opponents. We'll see what they do throughout the rest of WCC play, but I like Baylor to the Sweet 16 there. And Tennessee, I like them to beat Utah State here. Utah State with a couple Montana State transfers, including great Osibor. Good big play there, but Tennessee has gotten their defense on track after getting blown up by Texas A&M. They got it on track against Arkansas. I like Tennessee to win it there. And then Tennessee-Baylor. So this is two fraudulent teams that have been, ever since Baylor won the Natty in the tournament, two teams that are regularly seated high but don't really have a style of play that's conducive to making deep runs in the tournament. In this one, I like Tennessee to win it. Their defense, Baylor does not play much defense, and if they shoot the lights out from 3, then Tennessee can be gotten that way. We saw that in the Texas A&M game where 2 players dropped dang near 30 on them. But I like Tennessee to win this game the majority of the time, so I'm going to pick them there. Then Tennessee against Purdue, and I had Purdue winning last time, the whole thing. I'm actually going to have Tennessee winning this one. I think that Dalton Connect can go off for 30 or something, and he doesn't really work too much down low where Edey likes to live down there. We'll see about the offensive rebounding for Tennessee. I think that they can hold them down, double Edey, bring in a good game plan here, and win this one to send them to the Final Four. And as for the other side, we've got UConn against Iowa State. I like UConn to roll in this one. UConn is just great on both sides of the ball. It's hard to see them losing to anyone right now. I like UConn to get to the Final Four there. Now, bottom half of the bracket, Zona versus Oklahoma State / Boise State. And at the beginning of the season, I would have told you Oklahoma by a mile in this one. Boise State's been playing better. And the great thing about them is they can actually win on the road in a tough Mountain West. They don't protect their home floor as much as you'd like to see them do. But this game's in Salt Lake City, according to this bracket. For that reason, I'm going to take Boise State there. Max Rice and the boys to play Arizona in that one. Then Clemson, Stanford. I like Clemson to win. Stanford, very fraudulent record there. Same thing with UC Irvine. UC Irvine, though, dangerous team here. They have a win over USC that doesn't look as good anymore. And some of their fellow Big West competitors have some marquee wins as well. But I like Creighton to get it done here. Again, I think that they have a good chance of beating UConn, so a lot of people will look at them more highly because of that. So I'll advance Creighton to the next round. Then BYU against Texas A&M. Again, as I said before, I like BYU to beat Baylor. I think that that could enhance their resume, maybe up to a 5 seed as you see both of these teams going downwards. Texas A&M just got blown up by Bama. I like BYU to win this one. Again, BYU just lost to Oklahoma State on the road, so that didn't look good. Their 3-point shooting absolutely vanished on them. Same thing can happen to Texas A&M, but Texas A&M plays defense a lot better than BYU, to be frank. BYU also made a little change at the center position. Instead of Khalifa, they went with Traore more in that Oklahoma State game. That seemed to be working for them, so we'll see what would happen. I think if they use Traore more, they could win this game easily, even if the 3-point shooting evades them. Duke, Charleston, I like Duke there. South Carolina, New Mexico. So I was ragging a lot on South Carolina last week, and it proved absolutely warranted. Got blown up at Auburn by 40. That's not really excusable, but it's a game that I expected them to lose, if not by 40. Then they come back home in a bounce-back spot against an LSU team that had lost 5 of 7, and then they lose outright at home. That's just a horrible loss. They drop 2 to 3 seed spots here, and they're playing a New Mexico team that would be desperate. They like to run. South Carolina's had a hard time igniting that offense as of late. I like New Mexico to pull the upset there. And South Carolina, not really sure when the downward spiral will end, especially since the one thing about them is that they can win on the road, which a lot of these SEC teams cannot do, but they don't protect their home floor all that well. We'll see how they can end this season of SEC play. Kansas would then play New Mexico in that one. And then in the other bracket, bottom right, Houston against Washington State / Northwestern. I'll give Washington State it this time. Northwestern obviously won at Indiana. Side note, I don't know what jerseys Indiana were wearing, but those were horrible. But Northwestern, I have concerns about them. Obviously, Boo Buie is a wagon for them, and they've been shooting it very well from 3. But Ty Berry was one of those players that was very influential for them from the 3-point line. Now he's out for the season, so I'm going to be looking to fade Northwestern in some spots going forward, and I advise you guys do as well. I think that they will fall down from this 9 line, so for that reason, I like this Washington State team. Scores very consistently down low to face Houston in that second round. Dayton against McNeese State. This is a pretty sick matchup for Dayton. You wouldn't want to play McNeese State here, but I think Dayton would win. Deron Holmes could pull them to victory there. Then Illinois against Yale. I like Illinois to win that one easily, but I also expect Princeton to probably be in the spot. I like Illinois to win regardless. Texas Tech against Gonzaga here, and I'm actually going to pick the shocker and pick Gonzaga to win. Yes, Texas Tech boat raced Kansas last Monday, and I have not forgotten about that game at all, actually, but it was just the perfect spot for them. They do that, and then Kansas had some players injured, etc., etc. Then they go and lose at Iowa State. Again, respectable loss. I just think Gonzaga could surprise them here. If Gonzaga has a good game offensively, they haven't been the offensive firepower that they've had in years past. Texas Tech, solid roster all around, but I'm going to pick the shocker here, pick Gonzaga, give one of these 11 seeds a little run here, and then Alabama beats High Point, so they would be Alabama-Gonzaga in the second round. Michigan State against Mississippi State. Not sure where to go with this one, but I'll pick Michigan State. Just go with the chalk here. They've been playing as of late. As you can see, their seed line rising. Mississippi State up and down. Tough SEC. I hope to see Mississippi State in it. They play very good defense, especially at home. So I like to see Mississippi State in this tournament because I think that they could shock one of the better teams, just not this time. I like the Spartans to win that one. Then Marquette would play Michigan State there. So let's get back to the other side. We've got Arizona against Boise State, and if Arizona stays focused, which they've lost focus at times, especially last year when they lost to Princeton, then they might struggle. But I think that they are much better than Boise State here. I like Arizona to win, and they have looked better as of late. That double road victory against Colorado and Utah in the mountains there, that's really tough to do, and they did it with ease, then beat Arizona State by a record-setting 45 points. Now they play Washington and Washington State at home, and I feel those could be just as ugly. Give me Arizona to keep it rolling. Clemson, Creighton here, and Clemson's been playing very well lately, but I'm going to have Creighton winning that one there. Then BYU against Duke, and I'll give Duke the win there. BYU's been too up and down. Not sure what their three-point shooting is going to be doing on any given night. Duke, solid roster all around. They can score inside. Filipowski, very good player there. Good roster. I like Duke to win that one. Then New Mexico, Kansas. This would be just must-see TV, and I'm actually going to go with New Mexico to pull off the upset here. Kansas is just a touch overrated. They were losing at Oklahoma at the half. Of course, Oklahoma was shooting the lights out. Some nagging injuries for Kansas here. People are still getting healthy. If this game took place today, 1 in 5 times I think New Mexico wins. That's good enough for me. I think Kansas is a little overrated at the 2 line. New Mexico just hasn't played much Power 5 competition, so it's hard to gauge where they actually are. I like New Mexico to win that one, and then they would face Duke there. Creighton, Arizona, again, a match we could have had last year in this same round. I like Arizona to take it back, get to the Elite 8 there. Then New Mexico against Duke. I think New Mexico's run comes short here. Again, one of the fastest teams in terms of pace of play, and then that defense is also power rated pretty good just because of the turnovers that they can force, but sometimes New Mexico gets sloppy with the ball. I don't think that they can beat a 2 seed and then beat a 3 seed on the back-to-back. Give me Duke to get to that Elite 8 there. Then Duke, Arizona. Well, we've already seen this game, and Arizona actually won at Duke, but it's hard to beat a team twice. I'm actually going to have Duke going to the Final Four. I really don't like to pick a team to win twice in a row, but Arizona did do it on the road. I could see this one going either way here. This region is West Los Angeles, but I could see this crowd being split for pretty 50-50. Both these fan bases like to travel for these events. Give me Duke to advance to the Final Four there, and then our final quadrant, Houston against Wazoo. I like Houston to win there. Washington State, very good, but I think they will struggle mightily when they play at Arizona. They could get blown up by 15 plus in that one, but we'll see on Thursday there. Then Dayton, Illinois. Dayton, very good team, but I haven't necessarily seen them against the best of competition this year. I think they'll be up against it against a rolling Illinois with Terrence Shannon. I like Illinois there. Then Gonzaga, Alabama, and this is where I have it getting cut off for Gonzaga. Gonzaga did beat Alabama a season ago. I like Alabama to win it this season, although they have been very up and down. Then Marquette against Michigan State, and I'm going to have Marquette winning. I know Michigan State won last year. I know Marquette just lost by 25. Michigan State has been playing better recently, but I like Marquette to win it in that one. Then Marquette against Bama, and I'm actually going to give Alabama the win here. Again, their offense has been better. They're still letting up a ton of points, but they scored 100 against both LSU and Texas A&M recently. If they can do that against Marquette, and Marquette doesn't get an absolutely stellar performance out of Kolek, which they haven't gotten the past few games, then I think Alabama can cruise there. Alabama-Houston, though, this is where I see it coming to an end. Houston got the monkey off their back by getting that Iowa State win. Everyone had previously said, oh, their non-conference was pretty weak. They didn't play many teams. Houston also drugged Texas A&M. Texas A&M made a late comeback, but Houston won that one, so there's a game that they have in common. I like them to beat Alabama there. Now, on to the Final Four. We've got UConn against Duke, and then Tennessee against Houston. Very good Final Four. I think UConn rolls against Duke here, gives them a shot at the national title. Once again, they're just a wagon right now. And then Tennessee against Houston. I think Houston would be able to bog down this Tennessee offense. They're just so active on the defensive end. I like Houston to win that one and then face UConn. And in that one, I'm actually going to take Houston to win. I think that Houston has a really tough road game at Baylor this weekend. And last week, I took Purdue to win. They then lost at home to Ohio State. Once again, I think that UConn has a fair chance of losing to Creighton. So either way, I'd have a way to give a winner's curse. But I'll give the winner's curse to Houston this time. Just so good on offense and defense. The thing that gives me pause is their effective field goal percentage is in the 200s. No team has done that since UConn in 2012, consequently. But if Houston can just shoot hot for one game, I think that they can stop UConn and Klingen on the defensive end, collect more offensive rebounds, get putbacks, and I think Houston can win. That Iowa State game, it was just 10 points throughout. Houston had them at arm length. Iowa State was never really leading that whole game. So that's the kind of dominance you can get with this Houston team, barring a defensive breakdown like that game against Kansas. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and comment your predictions below.